The night hung heavy over Constantinople. The air carried the scent of smoke and salt, of sea and sorrow. In the great cathedral of Hagia Sophia, an old monk knelt alone. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of history pressing down upon them. Beyond those walls, the empire groaned under its final breath. The cannons had not yet reached the heart of the city, but their thunder was already inside every man's chest. Each blast was a reminder that dawn might never come again. And yet, within the shattered echoes of faith, the monk whispered his prayer. "Lord," he said, his voice cracked like ancient stone, "if this is our last night, let us fall with grace. Let our souls rise higher than the walls that failed to protect us." He listened to the silence that followed, and even that silence felt sacred. From far beyond the cathedral doors came the cries of the living and the dying, the desperate and the faithful. A mother's wail, a soldier's final shout, a child's sob. They all rose together, like incense toward a sky that refused to answer. Then came the bells. One, then another, ringing through the darkness like the pulse of a dying heart. The monk closed his eyes. Somewhere, beyond the city, another sound began to rise. The call to prayer from the enemy's camp. The Muslim voice of devotion carried through the night air, weaving itself with the trembling chime of Christian bells. For a moment, two faiths spoke together, each reaching for the same heaven. "Even now," the monk whispered, "they pray too." He stood slowly, his body frail, but his eyes still burning. Around him, the grand mosaics shimmered faintly in the candlelight. Saints and angels watched from the walls, their faces cracked and fading, yet somehow eternal. The monk touched the cold marble of a broken statue, the Virgin's face half buried in dust. "Forgive us," he said softly. "We built towers instead of faith." Outside, the storm of war roared closer. The ground trembled, the sky flared red. But inside, one small candle burned, its flame fragile, its defiance pure. The monk cupped his hands around it, as if guarding the soul of the empire itself. He closed his eyes and breathed, the words forming slowly, as if they were his last offering to time. "The empire will fall," he said, "but not the faith. Never the faith." The sound of the cannon came again, shaking the earth. The candle flickered, but it did not die. Its flame held steady against the tide of darkness. And in that small, trembling light, the monk spoke one final truth to the night. "Even empires pray before they fall." Chapter 2. The emperor's vigil night bleeds into the final hours of the empire. The city sleeps in fear, though no one truly sleeps. From the high walls of the Blachernai Palace, Emperor Constantine XI stands alone. His armor gleams faintly under the moon, the silver fading into the shadows like a man fading into legend. He looks down upon his city, his beloved Constantinople, once the jewel of the world, now broken by fire and hunger. The streets that once carried the songs of merchants and pilgrims now carry only the cries of the wounded. Smoke curls upward from the harbor, and beyond the walls, the faint glow of 1,000 Ottoman fires circles the city like a crown of flame. The emperor knows what awaits when dawn comes. He knows that no angel will descend, no miracle will save them. The West has turned its eyes away. Rome's promises are ashes. Only faith remains. And duty. He whispers to himself, as if reminding his heart to keep beating. We were born into glory, and now we must die with grace. In the courtyard below, he sees priests moving between soldiers, offering blessings before the final battle. The men kneel, some weeping, some silent, all bound by the same terrible peace that comes before the storm. He envies them, their certainty, their surrender, for he carries the burden of choice, the emperor's curse. Inside his chamber, the crown lies upon the table, beside a sword and a torn flag. He stares at it, then looks away. The weight of gold means nothing now. The city itself is his crown, and soon it will be taken. He takes a deep breath and begins to write his final message, not to kings, not to history, but to his people. "If you must remember me," he writes, "do not remember the emperor. Remember the man who stood among you, who loved you, who fell beside you." His hand trembles, but his words are steady. Outside, the wind howls through the broken shutters, carrying the distant sound of drums. The siege tightens. Time itself feels shorter with every breath. He steps out once more onto the balcony. The moonlight spills over the Bosporus, shimmering on the water like a blade. Somewhere across that dark sea, new empires are waiting to rise. He smiles faintly, a man who understands that his death is the price of their birth. A single bell rings from Hagia Sophia. He bows his head, hearing the echo travel across the dying city. The same sound that called him to prayer as a boy now calls him to war as a man. "God," he whispers, "I ask not for victory, only for courage." And as the wind carries his prayer into the night, Constantine feels no fear, only calm. The vigil of the last emperor has begun, and by dawn there will be no empire left to rule, only a name whispered through the ruins of time. Chapter 3. The Gates of Hell. Before the first light of dawn, the city trembles. The ground itself seems to breathe, slow, heavy, and alive with terror. From the western hills, the roar of the Ottoman cannons begins again, a thunder that shakes the bones of Constantinople. It is not just sound, it is prophecy. The earth moans as the great walls of Theodosius crack under the hammer of fate. The defenders move like ghosts along the battlements. Men who have not slept in days, eyes red from smoke and salt. Their armor is broken, their swords chipped, but their hearts burn bright with something stronger than hope: defiance. And on the other side, the Ottoman camp glows like a sea of stars. Thousands of torches flicker, banners ripple in the wind, and the voice of the muezzin rises, calling the faithful to prayer. The chant rolls across the valley, deep, rhythmic, unstoppable. From the walls, the Byzantines hear it and answer with their own, a chorus of hymns and cries to the Holy Mother. For a moment, the air between the armies fills with two prayers, two languages, two faiths, and one desperate wish: to be remembered. The cannons fire again. A section of the outer wall collapses, stones tumbling like mountains dying. Men scream, trumpets sound. The Turks charge forward, their armor glinting in the firelight, their war drums beating like the heart of the world. The Byzantines brace for the storm. The old monk, now among the wounded, lifts his eyes toward the sky. "This," he whispers, "is the sound of the world breaking." He presses the cross against his chest, not to beg for life, but to hold on to faith amid the chaos. Everywhere, the line between faith and fury blurs. Priests fight beside soldiers. Arrows fall like rain. Smoke rises high into the heavens, turning the morning into twilight. At the shattered gate, the emperor himself appears, not in royal robes, but in armor blackened by soot. His sword gleams, his face calm. He fights not as a ruler, but as a man who has already made peace with death. Behind him, the last of Byzantium stands, merchants, farmers, monks, boys, each one holding a weapon, each one defending something greater than walls, a memory, a name, a prayer. The clash is deafening, metal against metal, faith against destiny. Blood mixes with rain. Somewhere in the chaos, a soldier shouts, "The gate is holding." But everyone knows it is a lie meant to buy a few more heartbeats of courage. And then, as the great cannon fires once more, the final gate gives way. The earth opens, the city screams. The gates of Constantinople, once the gates of heaven, become the gates of hell. Still, through the smoke and ruin, a single bell rings from Hagia Sophia, faint but unbroken. And the old monk, his face streaked with ash, smiles through tears. "Even hell," he says, "cannot drown a prayer." Chapter 4. The Crescent Rises. Across the golden plain beyond the city walls, a young conqueror stands beneath a banner that ripples in the rising wind. The moon above him, the same crescent that gleams upon his standard, seems to burn brighter tonight. His name is Mehmed, son of Murad, Sultan of the Ottomans, and at 21 he carries the hunger of centuries in his eyes. For him, this is not merely war. It is destiny fulfilled. He was told as a child that he would one day ride through these gates, that he would finish what generations of sultans could not. And now, as the final night before victory dawns, he feels the weight of that prophecy press upon his shoulders like a crown made of fire. He walks through his camp in silence. Soldiers kneel as he passes, Turks, Persians, Arabs, men from far beyond the edge of the known world, all drawn together by faith, by ambition, by the promise of paradise or glory. The smell of oil, sweat, and blood fills the air. Drums echo through the ranks, steady and deep, the heartbeat of an empire about to rise. Mehmed stops at the edge of the camp, where his great cannon, the basilic, stands ready, its iron mouth aimed at the broken walls of Constantinople. He places his hand upon the cold metal, as if touching fate itself. In the distance, the faint tolling of church bells drifts across the wind. He listens, and for a moment he feels no hatred, only inevitability. "They pray," he murmurs, "and so do we." He turns to his generals. His voice is calm, yet it carries through the night like thunder. "Tomorrow," he says, "the world will remember this day. But remember, we do not take this city for vengeance. We take it for eternity around him. Murmurs of assent ripple like fire in dry grass. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, lift toward the ancient dome of Hagia Sophia, rising over the city's silhouette. He imagines it crowned with the crescent of Islam, the symbol of a new world. To him, it is not destruction, it is transformation. But even the conqueror feels the chill of the hour. In his tent that night, as the candles burn low, Mehmed opens the Quran and reads by the trembling light. His lips move softly, his voice blending with the sound of distant thunder. He knows that when the sun rises, blood will flow like a river. He knows he will walk through gates that once belonged to emperors. And he knows that with every victory, something sacred must be lost. As he closes the holy book, a whisper escapes him, a truth even a conqueror cannot deny. Empires do not fall, he says. They change their name. Outside, the wind shifts, carrying the scent of the burning city. The crescent rises higher, gleaming like a blade drawn against the night. And in its light, the fate of the world begins to turn. Chapter 5. The Night of Fire. The night descends like judgment. Constantinople burns. The wind carries ash instead of snow, and the sky glows red as if the sun itself has fallen into the sea. What was once the heart of the world is now a furnace of grief. Flames crawl up the marble walls of homes and temples. The golden roofs of palaces melt and drip like wax. Streets that once echoed with prayer now scream with the chaos of battle. The empire's last night has come, and it burns brighter than all the nights before it. In the heart of the city, the old monk walks through the smoke. His robe is torn, his face streaked with soot, but his eyes still hold the calm of faith. Around him, the wounded cry out for water, for mercy, for mothers who will never come. He stops beside a dying soldier clutching a cross to his chest. The monk takes his hand, whispering words that are half prayer, half lullaby. "Peace, child," he says. "You are already home." The man exhales, and the monk moves on. Through the haze, he sees the cathedral rising, Hagia Sophia, its great dome glowing like an ember in the darkness. Inside, thousands gather, women, children, priests, the old and the broken. They sing as the city collapses around them, their voices trembling yet strong. The hymn rises, fragile and defiant, carried by the wind over fire and ruin. Outside, the roar of battle grows louder. The Ottomans push through the streets, their banners lit by flame. Some fight with rage, others with awe, as they march through the empire's dying light. Above them, the crescent gleams through the smoke, unblinking, eternal. The monk enters the cathedral and sees a sea of faces turned upward, bathed in the glow of candlelight and fear. The priest at the altar lifts the chalice, his voice echoing through the dome. "This is not the end," he says, "for faith cannot be conquered." A thunderous crack splits the air as a cannonball crashes through the wall. Dust and fire sweep across the sanctuary. Children scream, the candles shudder. But the singing does not stop. The hymn grows louder, rising against the violence, a cry of souls refusing to die. The monk kneels in the chaos, clutching his cross. Around him, the world dissolves in light and smoke. He can barely breathe, yet he smiles through the tears and the dust. "Even in fire," he whispers, "God lives." Outside, the emperor still fights, his sword red with the blood of both friend and foe. The city burns behind him, the future marches before him. And above it all, the sky burns, not black, but gold, as if heaven itself mourns what men have done. When dawn finally breaks, the fires still glow, and the air is filled with the scent of smoke and sorrow. But within the ruins, a single candle flickers, refusing to die. The night of fire is over, the empire is gone. Yet faith, somehow, still breathes. Chapter 6. The Emperor's Last Ride. Dawn creeps over the city like a ghost. The fires have dimmed, but the smoke still hangs low, curling through broken streets and shattered towers. The sky is pale, not blue, not gold, but the color of surrender. In the courtyard of the Blachernae Palace, Emperor Constantine XI stands among the dying embers of his reign. His armor is dented, his cloak burned at the edges. The crown he once wore lies behind him, forgotten on the cold marble floor. Around him, the few soldiers who remain wait in silence, eyes hollow yet unyielding. The emperor looks at them, men who have fought without sleep, without food, without hope. He knows their faces by heart. Farmers, merchants, monks, boys who became warriors overnight. They do not kneel before him, they stand beside him. And in that moment, he is no longer an emperor. He is one of them. He speaks softly, his voice calm but unbroken. "My brothers," he says, "the walls have fallen. The city is lost, but our souls are still our own. If we must die, let it be as free men, not slaves of fear." A murmur rises among them, not of despair, but of pride. The emperor draws his sword. The steel catches the first light of morning, gleaming like a promise. He turns toward the gate, the last gate. The sound of drums grows louder. The Ottoman army surges through the smoke, a tide that cannot be stopped. But Constantine mounts his horse and rides forward. The soldiers follow, their voices rising in one final cry that shakes the ruins of Constantinople. The clash begins again, steel against steel, faith against fate. The emperor fights like a man who knows the story must end, yet still refuses to turn the page. He moves through the storm of arrows and fire, his blade singing through the air, his heart steady. For a moment, time stands still. A shaft of sunlight breaks through the smoke, falling upon him as if heaven itself has chosen to bear witness. He looks up, not in fear, but in peace. "Lord," he breathes, "into your hands I give what remains." Then he rides into the heart of the battle, disappearing into the sea of flame and steel. None see him fall. No grave is found. Some say he was buried beneath the broken walls, others that he rides still, waiting for the city to rise again. By noon, the empire is gone. The banners of the crescent wave above the towers. The streets fall silent except for the wind, carrying whispers of the last emperor who refused to bow. And somewhere, beneath the ashes of his city, his voice lingers. A promise, a prayer, a vow that will not die. "Empires fade," he whispers to the ages, "but courage is forever." Chapter 7. Silence after the storm. Morning breaks over a city that no longer belongs to itself. Constantinople lies in ruin, its streets empty, its towers crumbled, its people scattered like leaves in the wind. Smoke drifts across the Bosporus, turning the sunlight into a haze of gold and ash. What was once the queen of cities is now a widow of stone. The fighting has stopped. The swords are silent, the cannons cold. Only the wind moves now, whispering through the ruins, carrying the scent of death and incense. In the great cathedral of Hagia Sophia, the doors stand open. The marble floor is cracked and blood-stained, yet the air feels strangely calm. The mosaics of saints and angels, blackened by smoke, still glimmer faintly in the morning light. And in the center of that hollow sanctum kneels the old monk, the last witness of a fallen world. He holds his worn cross tightly, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from awe. Around him, the voices of the faithful have faded, but he still hears them in his heart, the hymns, the prayers, the cries of the dying. All of it now echoes in eternity. Outside, the footsteps of new conquerors echo on the marble streets. Ottoman soldiers move through the city, their faces solemn, their banners lifted high. They do not shout in triumph, they whisper. Even they can feel the weight of this moment, the passing of one age into another. Then the great silence breaks. A voice calls the adhan, the Muslim call to prayer. It rises gently, not as a cry of conquest, but as a song of faith. Its melody flows through the air and into the shattered heart of Hagia Sophia. The old monk listens. He does not cover his ears. He does not turn away. He whispers to himself, almost smiling. Prayers change their language, but not their meaning. He watches as a group of Ottoman soldiers enters the cathedral. One of them kneels, pressing his forehead to the ground. The monk lowers his head too. Two faiths, two worlds, one act of devotion. For the first time in days, the monk feels peace. The empire he knew is gone, but the presence of God remains. Not on banners or thrones, but in the quiet breath of those who still believe. He rises slowly, his body frail, but his spirit unbroken. He walks to the doorway, where sunlight spills across the marble like mercy. Looking out at the city, he sees ruin and rebirth in the same moment. Even ashes, he says, can pray. As he steps into the light, a soft breeze passes through the open dome. The last flame of a candle flickers, then steadies again. Constantinople has fallen. The empire is dead. But faith still breathes. Chapter 8. Eternal Light. The sun rises over the Bosporus, slow and golden, touching the ruins of the city with a light that feels almost merciful. The smoke has thinned, the fires are dying, and from the ashes of empire, a strange stillness unfolds. Not silence, but peace. The streets of Constantinople are unrecognizable. Marble lies shattered, towers are broken, yet the air hums with something living. From the harbor to the hills, life begins to stir again. The quiet movement of survivors, the soft murmur of new voices speaking the names of the dead. Among the ruins, a child walks barefoot through the dust. His hair is matted with ash, his clothes torn, but in his hands he holds something small, a piece of a wooden cross, charred but unburned. He does not understand its story, only that it feels sacred. He looks up at the morning sky, the same sky that watched an empire die, and whispers a prayer he does not know the words for. Nearby, a muezzin climbs a minaret newly raised from ruin. His voice rises with the dawn, long and melodic, a song to greet the day. Across the city, the echoes of that call blend with the distant toll of a single church bell, faint, broken, yet still ringing. Two voices, one sky, one new beginning. The old monk stands on a hillside beyond the walls, his body frail, his robe gray with dust. He watches the light spill across the domes and minarets, painting the city gold. His eyes fill, not with sorrow, but with understanding. Empires die, he whispers, but faith does not. He remembers the emperor, the soldiers, the women and children, the burning cathedral. He remembers the courage that outlived defeat, the prayers that rose above the flames. And he smiles, because he knows that their voices have not vanished. They have simply changed their form. Faith, he thinks, is not a crown or a flag. It is the breath that survives the fire. It moves from heart to heart, from one age to the next, unbroken. Below, the city stirs. Markets reopen. Smoke becomes mist. The Bosporus glitters again. Life, as it always does, returns. Humble, patient, eternal. The city will wear a new name, a new faith, a new crown. But somewhere, within its stones, the echo of the old prayer will remain. The monk closes his eyes and lifts his face to the rising sun. A single tear traces down his cheek, shining like gold. Even empires pray before they fall, he murmurs, and when they do, their prayers become the light that guides what comes after. The wind moves gently through the ruins, carrying the last whisper of Byzantium across the sea. And as the sunlight spills over the domes of the new world, the city breathes again. Not as Constantinople, not as Byzantium, but as something greater than either. Eternal, living, light.